I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to start this morning devotions with reading Joshua chapter 1, verse 9 out of the King James Version of the Bible. Have not I commanded thee to be strong and of good courage and not afraid? Neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou goest. So, Father, as we come to you today, we would ask that you go with us as we conduct the business of the county. Give us guidance and comfort. Give us wisdom. And, Father, we give you thanks for the blessing on this community. Give you thanks for rainfall. Give you thanks for prosperity. And we give you that thanks today in Jesus' name. Amen.
First up on the agenda today is the budget request for Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. Don, please introduce yourself to the public.
My name is Don. My name is Dionisio Rivera. I go by Don. It's a lot easier than having a 5-minute pronunciation session. My name is Don Rivera with the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. And first and foremost, thank you folks for your time and your support of our organization. If you're not familiar with our organization, essentially our mission statement is to heal the trauma of abuse to children and their families as a result of child abuse through prevention, support, and services. How we become involved in the community, essentially when there is a report made of child abuse to Department of Children and Families and law enforcement, our agency is then called out. We do have an home office here in Garden City, kind of just a few blocks away from us here. So essentially how the process is started, the report is made, our agency is called, and then we set up an interview or an evaluation of the child. First and foremost, the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of the child, and whatever fact-finding comes from that, we do aid law enforcement and Department of Children and Families and county prosecutor and anyone else that might be involved in said overall safety of the child. The child is brought into our office in the event that for some reason the family is not able to make it to one of our offices. We do have mobile units available to meet them where they are at. Unfortunately, if a service is too far away, if a service is over 50 miles away, folks are least likely to seek out that service, so we're able to come to them as well too. Through the amazing support of Garden City, Finney County, we're able to have an office here, which is amazing. So then the interview is then set up. The interview is with one of our staff members only and the child. Very well trained, very caring, loving individual, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later. DCF, law enforcement, anybody else that is essentially in charge of the safety of the child is then overseeing as well too from another room. Everything is being recorded, and the interview is being conducted in a way that's least traumatic to the child. The goal is one interview, first and foremost, to not re-traumatize the child anymore, and then we wouldn't want the child to feel like they're being questioned. Was I wrong to come forward? Was I wrong to speak about these things at home that I just don't feel like are normal? We would hate for that to kind of come from the child as well too. Law enforcement, DCF, are also able to speak to the interviewer if there are specific facts or key things that that are pertinent to the investigation. Hey, do you mind speaking about certain dates, specific times and places, things like that. While that's being done as well too, an advocate from our office is assigned to the family to essentially assess any other needs that would be needed. If there is a financial gap at home, kind of forecast down the road due to someone no longer being there, we're able to reach out to local resources, apply for housing if need be. One instance not too long ago, we were able to set mom up to get medication for the child. We're able to facilitate that as well. So we do stay with the child throughout the court process as well, working with the county attorneys, and first and foremost, after. Regardless of what the verdict is, we stay with the child. We're here for the child to provide therapy, essentially lay a foundation of healthy habits to kind of cope with the trauma they've kind of had to endure. I've been with the organization since February. Interesting thing I kind of had to, I was able to observe. We had a gal come in her 20s with a 2-year-old daughter. I was in a webinar that, to be honest, was a little dry. So they said, Don, do you mind, where do you mind, hanging out playing with this child while we speak to moms? Like, absolutely. So a little bit later, I kind of touched base with the therapist. I was like, okay, this is gal in her 20s. What am I missing here? I was new to the agency. I was like, what am I missing here? She said, well, she was a client previous as a teenager. Known, unfortunately, to have bad habits for coping with stress. Unfortunately, a lot of the negative things are kind of floating out in the community right now. She was known to use those outlets to heal her stress, heal her trauma. That particular day she came in, she just wanted some support. She'd been a client previous. She wanted essentially just some guidance. One of the statements she had made was, I have this 2-year-old daughter, I want to be better for her. That's the biggest part, the big picture of our organization, that's what we want to see. Rather than resorting back to negative habits, bad habits, she came into us. She came in to see us. Thankfully, the therapist she had worked with just happened to be there in that particular office that day and happened to still be with the agency. She knew, hey, absolutely, come sit down, we'll talk, no hesitation. Let's see how we can, she called it a tune-up, the therapist did. I don't think that could be any more accurate. Just a quick tune-up, quick redirect. Okay, hey, you're doing awesome. You're here. The fact that she was there in our office to request help was pretty amazing to me. So that's what we want. That's what we want to see. Here in Finney County, we've seen a total of 600 children, 159 interviews, 131 children in therapy, 1,129 therapy sessions as well too. And then total advocacy services or services in general, 4,162 out here in this area as well. Kind of mention about our interviewers and some of the staff that I've had the pleasure of meeting. Been in some, we'll call them interesting work environments, volatile, if you want to call it that. I don't think I've ever been around a group of folks that have been the most welcoming and supportive. So that if I'm kind of getting that right off the bat, I know these children, when they're stepping in our offices, they're stepping in our buses, they're in good hands. So it's really important to me. So, okay, I made an awesome choice to be here with this organization. I did bring Tamara with me. If she'd like to say, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words on behalf of our county prosecutors.
Thank you. Tamara Hicks. Welcome.
Thank you. As he said, I think most of you know me, but I'm Tamara Hicks. I've been at the county attorney's office for 32 years in August. So when I first started, I did child needed care stuff and juvenile offender, and then I moved over to the criminal side, and I do the majority of the sex offense cases, child abuse cases, domestic violence cases, all the things that involve the family dynamics. Those are my kind of cases. So when we first got to have the Child Advocacy Center help us, it was amazing to me because they helped me get the kids ready to go to trial. They give services to the family. They encourage the parents to communicate with our office. They sit with the kids while they wait for their time to go into court. They go into court and sit there with them. So it's not just a bunch of strange people listening to them talk about their trauma. They have the people that have been supporting their therapists try to come. The advocate comes for the families to include the parents or whoever is the caregiver. Sometimes it's a foster parent. Sometimes it's a family member that's not the actual parent. And so the fact that we get this support for the kids helps me in prosecuting those cases because I don't have to worry that those kids aren't supported. And the best part for me is once they've testified and they get to go back with the person who counsels them and they get to talk about how it felt to have to talk about it, how it felt. Sometimes it's the first time they've seen the perpetrator since they've been perpetrated on by him, or her. But it helps them to work through that and not just walk out the door and go home and freak out on the parents, which is what used to happen. The parents would call and go, we don't know what to do. Our kids are going crazy because they had to talk about this stuff. So they have the therapist. They continue to have therapy after the trial. They help them when they come to give their impact statements at time of sentencing. They are with us throughout the process. They start with the investigation, doing the interviews of the kids. They've been specially trained. We are allowed through the police department and the sheriff's department to use their facility. If we need to do an interview, say it's not a victim, but a child who has observed a homicide or a very dramatic domestic violence between the parents, our law enforcement gets to use the child-friendly environment to interview those kids instead of hauling them to the police department where all these people are running around with badges and guns and all of that. It makes it more relaxing for them, even if they have to talk about the bad stuff that happened at home. So not only do they help us with interviews, but we use their facility sometimes to meet with families, sometimes to interview members of the family. So we're encouraging you to support them so that they can continue to give services. At this point, I know that they have a waiting list for people to get therapy, for kids to be able to see a therapist on a regular basis. And that does concern me because there's not a whole lot of resources here where the kids can get as much therapy as they get when they go to the Child Advocacy Center. They get a couple times a month, they get to see their person. Where if they go to Compass, it might be once a month, it might be once every 6 weeks, it might be once every 2 months, just depending on what they can fit in. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here, is because I want to encourage them to be able to get the funding so that they can have more therapists and can continue to help us in the prosecution of these perpetrators. Thank you.
Questions for Tamara before she steps down?
I don't know if this is for Tamara, Mr. Chairman, but, and let me preface what I'm going to ask. I'm always concerned about duplication of services, or maybe not complete duplication, but can we work together? Can we be a part of another agency rather than starting a new agency, if you will? So that's the mindset I have as I hear some of the outside funding agencies that are going to be in front of us. Help me understand how and what the roles are between, and I know we're going to hear from CASA here in a little bit, between the Advocacy Center and CASA. And maybe there's others, but those are the two that come to my mind that are working with children and helping be an advocate for children and so forth. So just help me understand the differences.
Well, as I see it, CASA comes and is assigned by the court to work and bring information into the court setting. So yes, they do meet with the kids, they meet with the family, and they make reports back to the court to say what they think should happen. They don't have actual therapists with CASA, and that's the main part for my part of it, is that these kids get some help, because if they don't get that therapy, they can either get themselves into another situation where they're once again a victim, or they become perpetrators, because that's what they know. So the therapy part of the Child Advocacy Center is what I see that stands apart from the other agencies. Compass does get therapy, but they don't have as many therapists that are trauma-informed therapists for kids. And I think if you give them a therapist that's not trained in the trauma-based, and they're not trained to deal with children, it's harder for the kids to get what they need from them. So that's what I think the differences are there.
No, that's fair, and that makes sense to me. So thank you, Tamara.
Any other questions?
Is Finney
Yes.
County your largest county for patients or clients?
Oh, yeah, we,
Yes, ours.
definitely.
I thought yes, so right now, comparable, I suppose, would be Hayes, Kansas, Ellis County that we serve as well too. 282 children that we've seen, last year, 1,622 services in that area. Looks like, 83 new interviews essentially, so this might be new cases that have been brought to us, and 31 children that we have currently in therapy, and we do have an office there in that. They'd be somewhat comparable population-wise, off the top of my head right now. Okay, oh,
I
it's,
need my
yeah.
book, so I've,
Oh, it's okay.
yeah, I see it, thank you.
Usually I bring those out to you folks, we send everything over, and I made me nervous not having it in my hand.
Oh, it's in there, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
A couple questions. First off, keeping your request stable, that's appreciated.
Absolutely.
But I'm looking here on a scoring sheet, if you will, at other cash available or reserve. Tell me what's the target, for what are we saving the money for? What, long-range plan?
Long-range plan with that, in the event that we do have 6 mobile units, and they're RVs. In the event that not all grants will cover the upkeep and maintenance of these vehicles, and we service 34 counties. It'd be amazing if we could have 34 offices, but when it comes down to financial, it's not practical. So we do have some maintenance more than likely maintenance for those vehicles as well. There's just some things that grants won't cover necessarily. So that's why we kind of have that to fall back on that, and also we do see forecasting of several grants that are being cut, unfortunately, that we're still seeing fallout from, of course, from COVID, unfortunately, that we're seeing some of those grants possibly not there, either not exist or being cut significantly. So that's there to essentially fill the gaps where grants aren't able to pay for, because I'm sure you folks are familiar, grants are very specific. We were able to also, we just had one of our mobile units go down. Some of that was used to purchase another mobile vehicle to be stationed out of Hayes to service those counties up that way as well too, and wherever else it's needed to be. So any sort of financial things that pop up like that, that's what that money is utilized for. And
It's been kind of interesting over the years watching your agency grow, if you will. Starting off, I think, in Sublette with David and with Kelly. It's grown in counties, but it's also grown in office space, if you will. You now have an office here, have one in Scott City, is that correct?
yes,
You still have the motor home. So where else do you have?
our offices. So Colby, Kansas, Colby, Sublette, Liberal, Garden, Hayes, and Hayes. So we have those offices. About 25 employees kind of spread out among those counties. So, we're able to pull another therapist. If for some reason, Garden's a little full, the caseload's a little heavier than we'd like for our therapists here, we're hopefully able to pull from another county, and no hesitation, they're absolutely, I'll be there these days, let's go ahead and set up these children. So like all the services that we kind of been mentioning as well too are free to the families. So in the event they decide as well too that, hey, because life gets in the way, things like that, we're gonna go ahead and maybe stop taking our child to therapy. If for some reason parents identify, hey, we're seeing behavioral issues at school, they're more than welcome to call us, and we're able to get that to facilitate that child. Say, hey, okay, let's reevaluate, let's see where we're at on things. Of course, still free to the families to, like I said, the best we can to lay that foundation of healthy life choices, things like that, and to kind of just to help heal from the trauma from what they've kind of had to endure. Like I said, all those services are free to the families. In the event they want to come back, say, hey, it's been a few years, but I'm seeing some things. I want to just maybe have my child spoke to again. Can we walk through this? Absolutely. Let's bring them in the office. Let's see what we get done. Each child on average is about $2,000 is what our agency essentially invests per child. So that, with that being said, I'd like to make the request, and then if you folks would invest in 8 children, to the tune of 18.
Thank you.
9 children, sorry. Math is hard today.
Really,
Yes, sir.
as a percent of population of our region, is our problem increasing? Or are we just more aware of the problem that was out there all along?
I wouldn't say that it's increasing, it's more of it's being reported. Unfortunately, a lot of these things go unreported, sometimes unfortunately with multiple victims. So it's more of it's being reported, these children are coming forward. If statistics are kind of getting back to pre-COVID levels, when they're not at school, they're not in front of any sort of mandated reporter, we do see stats die off, only because they're not in front of one of these amazing folks here in the community saying, hey, you know, this child's amazing. There's been some things I would like looked at. But it's more of it's being reported. And I mean, we do have larger, Garden, Finney County would be the largest population county that we do serve. So that's why the numbers do look like that. I would see it more of an opportunity of, okay, we're aware of these children. Let's see what we can do to fill those needs. What can we do to provide for them to, like I said, get that foundation started, make sure that when they become an adult, they're able to step up and reach out for help. That's kind of the big picture of our agency. Yes, we are here for children, but at the same time, we want to lay that groundwork so we're not seeing as many of the things, unfortunately, we're seeing right now. So.
Yes.
Ron, I noticed from your financial information submitted that you have 114,000 from other counties. Can you describe what other counties are supporting your mission?
Of the 34 counties, I believe most of them are supporting. I don't have that dollar figure in front of me, but they do support us. Just like, especially when Osborne, Kansas, you know, it's just to kind of help facilitate, you know, the mileage, things like that. Like I said, we do have government grants for these things, but they don't always cover everything, unfortunately. And that answers the question. I don't have that dollar figure amount. I could probably.
Well, I'm just looking at it, it's 114,000 from other counties, and ours is 20. If you have 32 counties supporting, and I know that ours is the largest county involved. I was just curious as to the breakdown from perhaps maybe the other major counties, such as Ellis.
Okay, I can definitely get that to you. That's not something. Ellis, I don't necessarily know that figure off the top of my head, and I would hate to be incorrect.
Well, I would applaud your organization and so forth for having adequate reserves in order to continue your mission. I don't want to be seen punishing an organization that has adequate reserves, but at the same time, you're not a bank and you have considerable cash reserves. Any other questions from the commission? Closing remark, your funding request is 20,000, correct?
It's 18, sir. 18.
Well,
We had 20 in our,
Oh, okay. My apologies. That was.
This is your chance to jump on that 20.
I would like we'll request a 20. If that we can do that.
anything else for the commission?
No, I would just appreciate support, and we're here for the children of your community. In the event there's any questions, we'll be able to. Give us a call, reach out to us, we'll, best we can, come and find an answer for you.
It's my understanding that we take these under advisement.
Yeah, I offer the motion to take their budget request under
Absolutely.
advisement, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
second.
Been moved and seconded to take Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center request under advisement. Any further discussion?
Thank you, folks.
Ron, I would just simply echo what the chairman's asking as far as the breakdown of those other counties and that information be provided to our administrator.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any further discussion on the pending motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the business agenda today. All right, close. I can do better. Finney County Economic Development Court, Lana Duvall.
Morning, Lana.
Good morning. How are you? Good. So you do have the request in your packet, and we did make the same request that we made last year of $315,000 from Finney County. The city of Garden City is at $305,000. City of Holcomb is at $32,000, and Garden City Community College remains at $25,000. In the packet, we go through how those dollars are invested, and as it's been for the entire time that I've been in this position, the majority of those dollars are invested in the people. So you're paying for workforce development, data collection and analysis, marketing of the community, community development projects, and obviously recruitment of industry. A couple of the things that I think most of you are aware of the activities that we're involved in, but I think it's always good to reinforce to you the things that are probably taking up the majority of our time. And right now, those are certainly housing, childcare provision, and workforce development. We have, I think all of you except for Commissioner Pishney were at the annual meeting. You remember the numbers that we talked about with how many we have unemployed, which is a wonderful thing to have less than 2% unemployment for the folks who live here. That means they're employed and probably doing very well because our wages have increased significantly over the last decade. Unfortunately, we also have a lot of open positions in the community, so we have to do everything we can to retain the folks who grow up in this region and encourage them to pursue careers. As Mr. Kreitzer told you Monday, we have to do everything we can to get those folks interested in the opportunities that exist here. And if they can live in their more rural communities, that's awesome for us too. Bob made the comment about we've got to reach out and, we have all these folks who are driving in from Haskell County, from Kearney County, Scott County. It's so important that we're in front of those students and letting them know, number one, these are the opportunities that exist today, but also finding out what opportunities they're looking for. If there's something different that we're not doing, we need to be trying to attract those as well. And I think you've seen that specifically over the past year with some of the quality of life initiatives that we've taken on, the mixed use projects that we're working on. Those are the kinds of things that a lot of these folks are looking for in a more urban area. If we can provide that here, it gives us an opportunity, again, to keep those folks in the community. So I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you guys have.
Questions? I was looking down you had the, deal closing fund. Where do you list that separately, or is that?
You hold those funds, sir.
You hold them?
Those are in your hands.
It doesn't show up on your.
Absolutely not. We don't. Those aren't funds that we have any discretion over. We come to you with suggestions, and if there's a specific item that comes up where those dollars could shore up a gap for a project, we come to you for that. But Commissioner Schultz had looked that up not too long ago, but I don't remember if it was 900,000 maybe or something.
It's around $1 million.
The majority of those funds, I'm sure you remember, but came from the sale of the property that we sold to TPNL that was then sold to Empirical. we should have taken that deal instead of the first one, right?
Or did I see the number before the payout to farmland?
Yes, I think so. I think it's considerably lower than that. I can pull that information.
Okay,
on it.
maybe I saw the number before the payout to farmland, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't know if it's a question, statement, Mr. Chairman. I guess, and I'm glad Larry brought up that question, and I sense that then economic development does not consider that a part of its economic development funding, and it isn't directly to the office and so forth. But in my mind, I look at that economic incentive fund as a part of funding that the county is doing for economic development. And we've put in a substantial amount into that over the years. And so more of a, like I said, more of a comment than a question, but I kind of link those two together, even though I respect what Lana just said, that those are in our treasury, if you will, and we have the yay or nay say on whether or not they're dispersed. But I look at those two together as what the county's involvement is in economic development.
Yeah, just as a reminder, the city of Garden City contributes to that fund annually as well.
However, they haven't in the last year or so because of the money they're putting into the economic development office. They have not made a contribution in the last year or so. I don't have that right in front of me, but, and I don't anticipate they will this year either because of their funding level to economic development.
Well, and just not to interrupt you, Commissioner Fishney, but they also fund Downtown Vision out of the same line item that they fund us. So what they've always done is anything left in that line item has been a transfer directly over. So they consider Downtown Vision and Economic Development Office to be their community development line item. So you're correct.
That's fair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? To my left.
Not really. I think questions answered.
No questions.
All right, Lana, not that I'm a financial guru, I'll leave that to Jenny and other people who better read financial documents than I. But if I've looked at your 22 actual cash reserves from 22 to present 23 year-to-date, it's down about 71,000. Because of the diminishment of the Finney County Board of County Commissioners funding to economic development, have you been required then to spend down some of your cash reserves in order to make payroll, so to speak?
Yeah, well, the budget, obviously, we set a budget the board of directors sets a budget, and then we correlate that budget back once we know exactly what funding we're gonna get. We've been really fortunate. There's a couple of reasons that we were able to we had some reserves that we're able to tap into. We were able to get some of the, during COVID, the PPP loans. Yeah, we were able to get those, and those were forgiven. So that was, I think, 116,000, maybe something like that, that we were able to put in that were not budgeted funds. And then we also entered into an agreement with the city of Garden City so that they're paying half of the retail recruitment contract that we have, which is just shy of 40,000 a year. So between those two things, we've been able to kind of build the reserve a little bit, I guess. We've been in front of you guys for a lot of years when we were down to, we had years where we were ending with really, really, really small balances because we were simply just asking for enough to pay the bills and nothing beyond that. The board about 5 years ago said, that's pretty irresponsible to get ourselves in a position where we would enter into a new year without being able to make payroll. We're fortunate, the city pays all of their contribution upfront, usually January 2nd. They make that transfer into our account. So it's worked for us because they simply paid us quickly enough that we were able to budget out and get through. But yeah, the reserves we've been able to build them up some. We have never gone over the budgets that we have set. In fact, in all of the years that I've been here, we've come in significantly under budget, just simply because I'm really, really, really cheap, and we just don't spend a lot of money in the office.
I have a question for Jenny. We have a dedicated .25 mil development. Do you have an anticipation of what the mill is going to be worth for the 2024 request at this point?
I wouldn't anticipate it being a whole lot different than it was last year, but I won't know until we get to that point where we have the numbers from.
Right, we generally have a 10% increase in valuations. I was just wondering how that would calculate out to what the value of the .25 mil is.
I do not know what those numbers are.
If we used last year's numbers,
It would, it was about
1 mil is just under 500, just under 500,000.
so
It's about 126,000, something like that.
far as general fund monies to economic development, the dedicated mill plus what we need to in order to reach the request. That's what I'm looking at. All right. Any other questions for Lana?
Lana, you get you do consulting, I see you that one year. Are you still doing some consulting?
Yeah, right now we're doing, our largest outside agency project would be with the Groundwater Management District. And they were able to secure a grant from the federal government that allowed them to do a program really similar to what the city of Garden City does with their water utility, where they measure folks' water usage against their neighbors. GMD was able to do a very cool project where we did that with all of the irrigation wells out in Finney County, which is really cool. So we were able to show them not only how their water usage has changed over time, but how they compare to their neighbors in water usage. So those reports, actually Shannon and I were just talking about yesterday, those reports will be printed hopefully end of the month or first part of June, and we'll go out to all of the water users in GMD3. So that's the biggest one that we've been working on. We still work with Haskell County quite a bit and help them with really mostly with housing. They would really like to be a good partner with Finney County. They recognize that there's a lot of opportunity for them to attract residents and school children and hospital patrons by supporting the workforce in Finney County. So continue to work with them quite a bit as well. Those are really the two majors.
Yeah, one question I forgot to ask earlier, Alana. For us, for our education and for the education of the public, help each of us understand the relationship you now have with the SBA and Grant Lindenberger, and from duties relationship and also funding relationship.
Sure, it's SBDC, not SBA. SBA is the Small Business Administration,
Yes, I knew that.
which is a federal program. The program that we're partnering with is the Kansas SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center. For many, many, many years, their relationship was through Fort Hays State University, and we had exactly 0 clients served. 0 served by them. So the new statewide director recognized that probably we should be having more folks served, considering the growth in our community. And when we started visiting, it became clear to him that the reason that they weren't being served by SBDC was because we were servicing them. And we were doing that simply because we couldn't get appointments for clients. And if we were able to secure appointments, they weren't getting anything of value that would help them to actually launch their business. So the state director went to the legislature and was able to secure funding to do partnerships with economic development offices. So Seward County, Ford County, and Finney County, they put in a shared position. So they're contributing, I think this first year it's 30,000, might have been 35, directly to us, as well as a laptop and all of the training necessary and the access to the software, which quite honestly, the access to the software that SBDC has is probably the most valuable piece of what they're doing for us. So we hired Grant Lindenberger, who's a local kid. He grew up here, went to college at Fort Hays, came back, and he's hit the ground running. He started with us just a couple of months ago, and he's got to be at 10 or 12 clients that he's already got in his pipeline. So it's very cool. That's one of the more important things I think that we do, that it doesn't get nearly as much fanfare, simply because they're one-offs and they're individuals and they're business startups, and they're amazing. They're typically our community members who have a dream and come to us to build that with them. So it's very exciting when we're able to do that work, but it's also extremely time-consuming. So it's very helpful, again, to have that software, but also to have somebody whose primary focus is that small business development piece.
Thank you for that. I did misspeak with regard to the organization.
It's fine. We do access SBA, so so it's not, you're not entirely wrong.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a comment, not a question. Economic development in my history with the county has changed a whole lot. It used to be, let's try to get somebody to come in and open a business. But what Lana and the crew are working on now is everything from recruiting industry to workforce development to housing to childcare. You know, it's kind of a great big package. And we don't do a good job sometimes advertising that package for her. So I appreciate your coming monthly now with the reports. That
Yeah.
helps us kind of keep up to speed.
Happy to do that, and thank you for that. I think, as Matt Allen says often, we've done almost too good of a job of creating new jobs and bringing in the large industry. We have to play some catch up, and it's a lot of work to get caught up on housing and workforce. But you know, there's pains associated with dying, and there's pains associated with growing, and I think we'll all take growing pains anytime. And again, I would remind you, I know Commissioner Finney raised a question about the Leadership Kansas. You are absolutely welcome to be there this evening. They're going to do dinner and such, and nobody expects you to partake in that, but it is a great opportunity. These are 40 people from across the state of Kansas, primarily from eastern Kansas, where the population centers are, who, for most of them, this is their first time being out in the western half of the state. Garden City always ranks as one of their favorite trips. It's usually the number one that the students themselves, the participants, rank when they do 6 visits across the state, and Garden City is always first or second in their opinion. So the opportunities they get when they come out here are huge. They see things that none of them, for the most part, have seen before. So you really do have a great opportunity to go, introduce yourselves, find out, you know, what's happening. Tonight is my report. Probably not going to be really exciting for you guys because y'all have seen that before, but it's pretty fun to see the participants react to that information because they're simply not aware of the growth that we experience in this area. Finney County is.
Your thunder last night when I told $1 billion worth of sales.
Fine. Did they go,
Got almost a standing applause.
okay, all right. Well, as long as you got the right reaction, that's okay.
Almost. Yeah, that's my ego. But at the same time, Lana, please encourage Leadership Kansas to be taking a picture of what we're doing and how best to do it, including last night's presentation to Leadership Kansas, which included the history of Garden City and the effect and wonder and beauty of our diversity, the strength of our diversity, both in business and in culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Other questions, comments?
This was not a budget question. Where,
Being chastised again.
I know,
Could have just said Commissioner Jones.
I know, I'm on top of the list. You were at the governor's meeting. How did that go on your licensing?
Yeah, on Tuesday. Don't have a lot of resolution to the delay in licensing yet, but I think we're getting closer, so that's a good thing. But just because you guys are fully aware of the challenges that we've had regarding childcare, not only here but across the state. At the task force meeting on Tuesday, we heard from the state of Colorado and the state of Missouri, both of which, one with a Republican leadership, one with Democratic leadership, both of those states have created basically a cabinet for early childhood in just the last couple of years. So we learned some of their best practices, what they've learned in creating that program. And one of the biggest questions from us as a task force was, how about efficiencies? Are you seeing increased efficiencies in getting childcare facilities opened and getting children served? And both states, even though they had taken different tacks to get where they were, both states felt very good that that they were certainly seeing increased efficiencies. And the Missouri and Colorado both actually made the comments that there were tiny little groups of people who were dedicated to licensing, which is exactly how it is in KDHE. And there's so many other things that they do in those agencies that nobody really knew what was happening in childcare licensing. So it's easy to get frustrated and for us to say, well, they're idiots or they're trying to hold us back. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's more than anything, you've got this really important function kind of watered down by all the other really important functions that KDHE provides. So I feel like we're gonna make great improvements to that process for future. I just wish we were able to be beneficiaries of that too. So yeah, we're on top of it, but
Usually the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
keep squeaking. Yeah, I think we're getting closer. We did get, we got a response back from them. We've only had 3 points of contact since we initially submitted it back in March. So that's a little concerning. I mean, even an email to say you're number 10 on the list or something to make you feel like you were at least in a funnel somewhere would be beneficial. But
You need a little lead time just to hire staff.
and you can't do any of that until you know that you can pay people. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I know that it's not budget, but at the same time, it is for me because childcare advocacy came under your umbrella. And childcare is critically important to our community, and this is 59 spots plus another 59 if we can get it structured. And, this is not a lagoon inspection. These are kids that need places to be taken care of so that our economic engine can flourish. And so, I'm not very happy with people that are regulating and sitting on something for more than 90 days without some positive feedback. I encourage you to contact Dr. Clifford and Senator Bill and see if they can help push this past the line. Because I don't think there's anything that the five of us can do, but I'm confident that they have budgetary authority over that. Okay, your request, as I read it, is $315,000. Any final remarks on your request?
Just we thank you always for your support. It's an honor to serve this community, and you guys hear it when you travel across the state, and we certainly hear it too. This community is recognized for the investment that we've made, and I would just your return on investment has been really, really significant over the last decade. So it's paying off, and we just, I think, have to keep our heads down and stay in the thick of it. The team that we have at Economic Development absolutely believes in this community and believes that we're the best place for folks to do business and the best place for folks to build a career and a life, and we're proud to serve you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I move we take economic development's budget under advisement.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to take economic development's budget request under advisement. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll hear from City on a Hill and Miranda, or did you bring someone else with you today? Well, would you introduce both of yourselves and
Yes.
come up and address the commission, and welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name is Miranda Unruh. I'm the CEO for City on a Hill. Been with City on a Hill for 7 years. And I've brought with me Donna Daly. She's our program director at the Intermediate Treatment Facility in Dighton, Kansas, and she's been with City on a Hill for 8 years. City on a Hill is a faith-based substance abuse treatment program. We serve most of the western Kansas counties. Also, residents of other counties come to our programs as well. Last year, we moved our 8-bed women's residential treatment program from Marienthal to Dighton, opening 8 additional beds for inpatient treatment services in western Kansas. We also have our reintegration program for women in Liberal. We've got 20 beds there. We are working towards opening our social detox program at the Dighton location to serve women in need of detox prior to entering an inpatient program. And we'll also be moving towards providing mat services in that facility as well. In Finney County, our office here, Garden City, we do outpatient treatment. We're also a designated women's program, but we do work with men and adolescents for substance abuse treatment services, providing alcohol and drug information classes, drug and alcohol assessments, and referrals to different resources within the community. Or anything else you want me to, sorry. Any questions as far as what City on a Hill does? I don't know if all of you are familiar with what we do.
All right. Anything else from, I wrote down her name. to the
Donna.
page and then completely missed out. Diana, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just think that the most important thing that we bring for Finney County and the surrounding areas is a different aspect of substance abuse. We don't just focus on fixing the addict, we focus on fixing the family by dedicating our time to women. We've seen a lot of success. My favorite saying is that if you help the mom, you help the whole family. So our success rates tend to be a little bit better because we focus just on women and what the issues are with them, a lot of past traumas, things like that. And I just think that we bring a very unique program to, Finney County and the surrounding counties as well.
I'm gonna start with questions, Miranda, if you don't mind. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
I'm the rookie here. These other guys been around for 8, 16, 20 years, whatever. So this is kind of my first run through this. So help me out. It appears that last year you didn't make a request for funding.
We did not. Last year,
Can you address as to why?
I honestly we were very, very busy, and springtime came around and I didn't.
Okay.
So, I know, we were busy working on Dighton, we closed a program down in Sedan, Kansas, and it was all during this time of the year. And so some things got looked over.
A lot of people are really busy in spring, I get it. I also looked at your funding for other counties, and the other counties that you serve, have you made requests to those counties for funding this year?
Yes, we have.
And can you kind of give me a breakdown of what other counties have done or are doing?
Yes, we have requested, Stevens, Seward, Lane, Scott, Greeley, Kearney. I know I'm missing some, Stanton, Morton, all the surrounding counties. Usually they give, about 15 to 2,500. Seward County has given 50,000 per year for at least the last 2 years.
You have an office there.
Yes, we do.
You have an office here.
Yes, we do.
All right, well, those were my questions, and go left to right. Dave?
I had an opportunity some years ago to come to your place of business in Scott County and enjoy a big bowl of homemade ice cream and get the tour courtesy of the former director. And I would encourage you to open that opportunity up for fellow commissioners, not just from this county, but from others, to have one of those days again somewhere along the line, because it's very enlightening. I was surprised at the services offered at that forum, and it's females only still, correct?
Yes.
And then on the chairman's question about no funding last year, you were the recipient, as I recall, of some ARPA funding, significant ARPA funding, were you not?
I believe so. That was,
25,000, as I recall.
yes.
So there was some money in the bank when you got through, so anyway, I appreciate what you're doing. And
Thank you.
so-
Thank you. And when we do have an open house again, we'll be sure to invite you.
Especially if you have homemade ice cream.
I will work on that. I'll start practicing.
A little bit confused. Your services outpatient are available to men and adolescents as well, but only women in the facilities? Is that,
At our residential facilities,
Residential.
yes, yes.
Anything else?
Nope.
Commissioner Pishney?
I don't think I have any questions, but I appreciate the fact that you, even though it showed zero last year as far as requests from us and decreased, that you were a recipient of some of those ARPA funds and helped you keep your operation going. My question with that preface, my question is, you're making requests, but have you physically made the requests to some of these other counties prior to you being here in Finney County today, making a request? And with that, is the reception what it was a year or two ago with regard to these other counties that you're finding? I mean, I heard you say some numbers, but I didn't know if those had been made as requests and they've spoken to that, or if that's what you're requesting.
For this year, that's what we'll be requesting this year, but that's what we've received in previous years,
Okay.
so.
I just wanted some clarification on that. Thank you. Yeah.
No questions? You're taking it easy on me today.
Well, I don't know. I thought maybe I had a tough one, but apparently not. So, with that said, your funding request is 20,000, correct? And do you have any final remarks before we make a motion with regard to your request?
Substance abuse treatment with, the with the increase in substance abuse in Finney County and overdoses, we are, an important resource to have available with our residential programs, detox programs, and soon-to-be MAT services. It is an important piece to treating the community, the needs of the community. So I just ask that you take our request and with serious consideration today. And I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we take the request from City on the Hill under advisement.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded to take the request of City on the Hill under advisement. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same
Thank you.
sign. Motion carries. Since we've been at it an hour, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 9:40. Meeting of the Board of County Commissioners back to order after a 10-minute recess here at 9:40. The next agency on the agenda this morning is Spirit of the Plains CASA. Welcome, Debbie. Ms. Reynolds, would you please identify yourself for the public and begin your presentation with this brief remark by the chairman?
Debbie Reynolds, I'm the executive director.
You cut my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to build up your presentation. just-
Okay.
In my opinion, the Spirit of the Plains CASA is a vital and critical, important agency for child advocacy for us, not only here in Finney County, but throughout southwest Kansas. Child advocacy in the legal level is supposed to be done by a person designated by the court as a guardian ad litem, generally an attorney. As a young lawyer, I thought that it was critically important that the guardian ad litem be the advocate for the child. I've come to understand that the court-appointed special advocate program, giving voice to children in courts, is vitally important so that the people that make decisions, our judges and our county attorneys, have better and more information than that was being provided prior to the existence of CASA. So I wholeheartedly endorse the effort of the work that you're doing. And with that, would you begin your presentation?
How do I follow that? But thank you, Commissioner. Debbie Reynolds, I'm the executive director of Spirit of the Plains CASA. I've been there since 2018. I came out of retirement to help Robert DeLeon, and here I am running an organization again. But I love the mission of Spirit of the Plains CASA. I can tell you so many different stories, but I'll leave that to the end. I hope you have our annual report, and we served 124 children last year, and 110 was in Finney County. So the lion's share of our work is here in Finney County. We are seeing an uptick in some of the outlying counties. We serve kids in the 25th Judicial, so we serve kids in 6 counties. Not many CASAs in the state of Kansas serve that big of a district, but we do because, we do everything big out here in western Kansas anyway. We had last year 23 advocates. I know some of you have been concerned about why we can't ever increase our numbers. Well, child abuse is a difficult subject. We had a veteran case scenario. We had a veteran advocate who's been with the agency for 17 years. Has done unbelievable amount of work. Her last case was of a sibling group of 9. It was a tough case. It was not an easy case, and she says, "I'm done." That was after 17 years. So we get a lot of advocates who'll stay with us for a few years. We have some who will come and take 1 or 2 cases, and they said, "This is too tough. It is way too tough." For a lot of different reasons. One, the subject matter, sexual abuse, neglect. We have a lot of families that have drug issues. Actually, last year, 77% of our children had some type of drug issue in their family life. A parent, maybe they had some issues, their parent was incarcerated because of drugs. There was some kind of issue. And we're seeing that grow. Just in the last 3 years, it's went from 68% to 72%, and then last year, 77%. I can only see us getting higher. We are only involved in a child's life once the judge appoints us. So we don't get all the cases. We get the cases probably are the toughest or the worst ones that he really wants additional eyes and ears on the case. National standards with CASA, a CASA can only have 2 children. Now, when you have a huge sibling group like the one I was just talking about, we can get a special dispensation from OJA, which allows us to serve a sibling group. It doesn't make sense to put 4 CASAs on a sibling group. So we can get special permission from OJA to actually serve a huge sibling group. I try to explain to them in the national office, we have big families out here in Southwest Kansas, and I'm sure there's big families all over the United States. But they are only allowed to get 2 people or 2 children. So with that being said, we know they are very highly regarded and the cases. So the judges and the attorneys work with us to say, Deb, do you have a CASA on this one? We'll try to get one. We hold classes every quarter. We've started classes that are in person, actually hybrid, where they can take them, you know, partly at home, do videos. You know, society's changed with Zoom and with technology, so we've gotten into technology and starting doing a lot of things by Zoom. Because, you know, a lot of our advocates are teachers, and they don't want to sit in the classroom all day and come back and sit in the classroom with me for 4 hours. So we've gotten really creative how to do that. Anyway, getting back, we had 23 advocates last year, and they're all volunteers. But they have a lot of responsibility. They write a court report to the courts, every court hearing. They're mandated to visit the child at least minimally once a month. They see all the players. When I think about some of the folks here, we're making recommendations to the court that Western Kansas Childhood CAC needs to be involved, or the parent needs to go to City on the Hill. We're actually making those recommendations to the judge in order to look after the child's best interests. We do believe a child to be with their family if their family is healthy. A lot of times, parents can never get there. Unfortunately, with the court system the way it is, last year alone, the cases that we actually closed, the average amount of time was 27 months. Now, can you imagine you're a 3-year-old kid and you're taken from your home, and it takes 27 months to actually, for your case to close, to either be reintegrated with your family successful or to be adopted. That's a long time in a child's life. Our volunteers spend over 1,000 hours, and we started counting advocacy encounters because we thought, you know, we do so many things, like we go to IEPs at school. We actually go to parent-teacher conferences because a lot of these children have never had anybody go for them. We may take them to a doctor's appointment because nobody else can do it. So we look after the holistic of the child, and that probably is the best way to describe it, Commissioner Pishney, that we look at the holistic part of the child. Like, what are all the things that the child needs, and how can we make it happen? We're an office of 3 people, and I will say this, I know we're going to get budget questions, and I'm a budget person, but you know, when I started in 2018, and I know nobody told Robert and I how broke we were. We had a balance sheet of $59,000, and I was like, that's not even our budget. And so we started writing grants. So most of I will say, the bulk of our funding is through grants, donations, and county support. We get support in every county, but you guys are the most generous. So for a 3-person office, we do a lot with very little, and thank goodness all the advocates we have, they do all the work with the children. We are going to have our first signature event this year, which I'm really excited. I can't reveal it just yet, but I hope you'll all participate in it because it's going to be a fun event. You know, I always love to have big fun events. So in my previous careers, I've always had fun with fundraisers. That's all I have. I hope I didn't miss anything.
We're gonna start right to left this time, just out of the sense of geometrical certainty. Commissioner Jones?
I really don't have any questions right off the top of my head. I may, after everybody discusses something, something may pop up, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a 2-part question, and more clarification than anything. The children that you're representing and advocating on behalf of range in age from what to what?
Birth to 18.
That's what I thought, but I need confirmation.
We get a lot of children that are in the NICU because of drugs.
And then secondly, you've referenced a couple of times 23 advocates. If you, and a 17-year veteran, if you will, departing. But if you had your way in a perfect world, how many advocates would you try to have, Would it be 25? Would it be more than that? I mean, or at 23, are you at capacity as far as training and all the other things that you're trying to do?
That's a great question. I've always said, my goal is to have an advocate for every child that is a child in need of care case. And so with that, that's a moving target, but I think every child deserves that. You know, right now in foster care, I'll have a sidebar conversation. We have a smoking mirror going on in Kansas right now because, you know, the state of Kansas says, oh, we have too many children in foster care, over 8,000. So they bring up a new initiative called Family First. In theory, it's beautiful. You, instead of removing the child, you go in and you put services in the home. Well, we see a lot of that, so we're never appointed on those cases because they have intense supports in the home that's given by a foster care agency. A lot of times we see when we're at these temporary hearing custody, these kids eventually make it in anyway. So in theory, Kansas is making an attempt to lower their numbers of foster care, but there's the same amount of number or more numbers of kids out there. They're just in this different initiative, so they're not counted as foster kids. Not to be naysayers, but that is really what's going on. And so because of that, our numbers actually dropped a little bit from last year, just because the judges are making decisions of this instead of having kids go into foster care, putting Family First in there. And, you know, it might work. I hope it does for the children's sake and for the family's sake.
Part of the reason for my question, Debbie, is that the number 23 kind of struck with me because it seemed like when Robert was here prior to you, that it was a much lower number of volunteers. It seems like you've had success in building that number, and so that was what led me to the question.
We have. When we started, I think we had like 12. But we've done things for engagement. I mean, they have a hard job. It can be thankless at times. And so we do a lot of things for engagement. We had our first annual appreciation luncheon for them last year, which they were given awards, and we had the judges come out and speak to them, and you know, just to show our appreciation for what they do. So I think we're doing a better job in retaining them with engagement.
Very good, thank you.
I have no questions at this point.
You pretty much answered the ones I was going to answer about the numbers and types of cases, so.
Debbie, I'm one of those who's always fascinated as to what the other counties are doing, and to my knowledge, your report is the most detailed that we got for sources from other counties. And thank you for that particularity, and perhaps others will gain from the kudos given here that we would really like to know what the other counties are doing to these multi-county places that have sources for funding. I note with interest that our friends in Hamilton County catching from $1,000 to $500 last year. And I think a single phone call to Robbie Gale would probably be in your best interest.
Okay.
I think that Hamilton County can get on board and get you back to where you need to be. And percentage-wise, it appears that Finney County reaps the benefit of some of the other counties' generosity towards your program, because I know most of your cases are unique.
Correct. It was 110 last year in Finney County. We had 8 in Kearney County, and we had 6 in Scott County. But we have had increases, like Scott County is now, they used to give us 1,000, now they give us 2,000.
Well, that's just plain wonderful because of the work that is done in court. And my fellow commissioners, you need to know that CASAs are the voice for the children in court. And I want you to know that I really like the work that you do, and I was one of the principal persons who fought against OJA's implementation of this program a long time ago because of my desire to have guardian ad litems pick up the slack who were not doing their job adequately. And as it turns out, there's so much more that can be done with a court-appointed special advocate that guardians ad litems cannot do. And so your very much appreciated. Your request this year for us is $20,000. Is there any other questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, Debbie, why don't you give us a final remarks as to your request?
I want to leave you with a story. I forgot to mention something. In the last 3 years, all the children that we've actually supported, none of them has been removed from home again, which we feel is a beautiful, we have done our job, you know, looking after the best interests of the child, whether it is reintegration with the parent. But to say we have 0 recidivism rate is awesome. And I want to share a story about how awesome CASA is. We had a young woman who came in the office, says, I want to do a garage sale for you guys for baby clothes. We're thinking, okay. You know, we never turned down funding. And started talking to her. She was a student at Seward County in the radiology program down there. She's getting ready to graduate, and they have a community, they have to do something, donate community hours. They have to do something for the community that they're in. She still lived in Garden, and she, you know, transferred back and forth to go to school there. We just started talking. I said, why did you choose CASA of all people? And she said, I was a CASA child. I said, really? She told me her story. She was 15 years old, and she was removed from home. Her parents were both drug users. And she aged out of the system at 18. At 18, she became homeless because she had nowhere to go. The system really has failed a lot of these children. When they're 18, they don't have anywhere to go. But the CASA, who was on her case, who stayed on her case the entire time, would text her, you know, I think a way out of your situation is to go to school. And she did that, and she goes, no, I'm not ready. You know, she's basically living on people's couches. And CASA would text every few months. Finally, she says, I'm ready. Can you pick me up? The CASA picked her up, who was no longer, the case was closed, but took her, got her enrolled in school. She was getting ready to graduate. And I tell you not, she was accepted in the KU med school as a doctor. And she went, and this was her last part, and she was going on to further her education. I go, oh my God, you're the CASA poster child. Because kids who have CASAs, they do graduate from high school. They usually go to college. They usually just have a much more successful life. And I just saw her the other day at the hospital, and she goes, I'm in med school. I leave that note that, you know, I think what we do for kids in our community is so valuable, and that I think we're making better citizens for our community. And we've appreciated your support since 1989. We appreciate it again this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On our agenda, excuse me, we have a motion to make.
Oh, I'll
Miss-
make, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we take Spirit of the Plains CASA budget request under advisement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to take Spirit of the Plains CASA budget request under advisement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Jenny, on these forms, the only thing I would request next year
Thank you, Debbie.
is instead of year-to-date, put down the amount they're granted, because year-to-date doesn't mean anything. Because everybody pays different times, and it's hard to compare year to year to year.
Well, guess what? One of the things that I requested was the year-to-date allocations, and Dory put that together for me, and I probably should have shared it with each of the commissioners.
Okay, yeah, I like the requested part and then the approved part.
Correct. We take a break, we'll get copies.
I won't need one for tomorrow, though.
Well, you're not gonna be here,
I'm not gonna be here.
but we can get it for everybody. Good work by Dory in getting me this information. Gabby, I didn't know if you had anything to do with it, or whether Dory did it. But either way, I really appreciate it. I think it helped me organize my thoughts. Next up, we have the outside agency of Finney County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Roxanne, please announce yourself.
Okay, I am Roxanne Lansing, the Executive Director of the Finney County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we are kind of an anomaly. We are not asking for any general funds. We are a specific use tax, as you know, the hotel tax. And just, I know a lot of you are used to me doing my spiel, but I do it every year for the new people and the people out listening, that it is a 6% tax that is taxed on every hotel room and lodging facility that is in Finney County. That meaning that the Finney County CVB is an investor in Finney County because the funds that are allocated to us from that specific use tax come from outside of our community. So the Finney County taxpayer has no investment but is a recipient of the work that we do. In 2021, I always tell you about tourism economics, and we get that report from a third-party reporting system called Tourism Economics. And they always run about a year behind because they're very thorough in the collection of their data. 2021, Finney County leisure and hospitality spending was $128 million. That is up from 2019. We kind of skip over 2020 because you really can't count leisure and hospitality because of the fact that we basically stayed home that year. So I like to look at 2019 versus where we are currently. And we are up still 5% growth from 2019. We had hit $122 million in 2019. And even in 2020, we rebounded fairly quickly in comparison to the rest of the United States, as we ended up at $104 million in leisure and hospitality spending. 17% of those dollars spent were lodging dollars, which, like I said, means for the rest of the community that those dollars are restaurants, small businesses, and those things that a visitor likes to come and see, shopping, access. That means for the local government, $12.2 million in state and local funding that is directly supported by those leisure and hospitality spenders. At the Finney County CVB, we have 3 core areas that we work on is marketing and recruiting, and then marketing co-op. Obviously, marketing is getting the word out about Finney County and what's going on in the area. We have several different areas that we do that in. Obviously, television, radio, the standards. We've started working with a group, Datify, to kind of follow what we do to make sure that we're replacing our ads or that kind of stuff, just kind of getting some statistics behind the insertions that we're doing to make sure we're facilitating the groups. We have marketed in the Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas area, and we have seen a significant increase in those visitors from those areas that we're marketing. So it gives us a good base of knowledge to know where we're coming from. I know you've heard from Shannon Dick at Economic Development. Basically, it's cell phone tracking, credit card tracking, that kind of stuff. I know that's very invasive, and a lot of people are not in favor of that, but it is a very valuable way for us to be able to make sure that we're spending those taxpayer dollars in a manner that has an ROI, basically. So I wanted to let you know about that a little bit. Recruitment, you saw in the last 2 weeks in JCAA, we had 2 very long weeks of golf. Epson Tour, ladies developmental tour for the LPGA was here. We had 144 girls here, 32 countries represented, and multitude of states. Then we followed that with a National Junior College Athletic Association Ladies National Championship. We had 17 schools here, as far as we had Florida, Michigan, I believe Alabama. So we've had those girls actually came in a little bit early so that they could watch the final rounds of the Garden City Charity Classic. It's always nice when you can fulfill dreams for people, and it was kind of great to see some of those girls get to kind of watch that tour and see how things are going to be moving forward. Also, during Garden City Charity Classic, we do a high school program where our high school teams from the 22 counties around us that have ladies golf teams are invited to come and spend an afternoon with those ladies, kind of getting some tips, getting some experience, what to look forward to moving forward if they want to go into professional golf, or what college golf is going to look like for them. So we're really excited about that. Also, in June, you will see the 30th of June, Main Street will be packed. We have an event called the Great Race. I don't know if any of you know anything about that, but it is an antique car race from across, that goes across the nation. Cars have to be, I believe, 100 years old. So that should be a great event that has national presence as well. So we've moved out of those, quote, weekend tournaments or weekend events, and a lot of those events that we have grown and recruited are 4+ days and make a huge impact. Garden City Charity Classic has about a $900,000 to a $1 million impact. And the NJCAA has I haven't done the numbers on that yet, but will have a significant impact as well. Another area is the marketing co-op. Marketing co-op is where we facilitate helping financially and marketing those events that happen every year. Or a new event coming in that a local event holder is holding, Beef Empire Days, Tumbleweed, the Finney County Fair, those types of events, Sip and Shop downtown, those kind of things. We help to facilitate making sure that they have funding by giving them co-op dollars. I have a 4-person office, and the majority of my staff sits on a multitude of more than one board. In the tourism aspect, Sports Kansas, I have a person in my office that sits on the state roundtable, which helps the Department of Tourism make decisions about marketing moving forward for the entire state. And we do work regionally because we know rising waters sail all ships. And so we work with Dodge City and Liberal quite a little bit on co-op marketing. And also Wild West Country is the 22 county coalition that we belong to and market with. So I believe it's really hard to follow CASA. But I believe that what we do in our community and is of huge, huge value. I think the visitor experience is of huge value to our community just because of the sales tax dollars and the additional income that it brings in. But, you know, when Lana was talking too, retention. A lot of these kids are now willing to come back because there are more quality of life things happening in Finney County. I've had multitude of people coming up to me and saying, we don't take trips to Wichita like we used to because we'll take an extended weekend and spend it in Finney County. And our Datify documentation is supporting that. An average stay in Finney County is 4 days. And generally it is a Thursday through Sunday stay. So that's exciting for us because we haven't been able to look at that information previously. So that's exciting to be able to let you know that. So at that point, I would stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Roxanne. Questions from the commissioners this time, left or right?
Not really a question, more of a comment. The 900,000 that Roxanne's asking for those out in TV land has nothing to do with property tax. It's commonly called heads and beds tax, transfer tax, and it's very limited by statute in what it can be spent on.
It is very limited, and I will tell you, even though it looks like there's $900,000 coming into the budget, what is generated in that bed tax, 2020, for example, we only receive what is generated in that bed tax, and 2020, that dropped significantly. Our budget, I believe, that year was $900,000. We received $600,000. So we're always watching the transient tax and making sure that we're not exceeding our budget. And if you will look at our previous budgets, we have never expended more than our receipts. So We're very proud of that. And just because it looks like we have a $900,000 budget, it doesn't mean that that is exactly what it is. It is a specific use tax. So if it comes in at 900, great. That means you don't have to make a transfer of $100,000 to us at the end of the year. Basically, this saves you from making a transfer later in the year.
Means kind of simply, if you don't get the 900,000,
We don't spend 900,000.
if you get more than that, then you gotta transfer it.
And we have to wait for a transfer, yes, sir.
All kinds of safeguards in it. I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate what you just said, because that was what I was going to point out, though.
Right, we cost the local taxpayer literally $0. Every single dime that the Finney County CVB receives is from an outsider, is from an outside stay. You have to spend the night in a hotel.
I might point out you were just slightly ahead of last year. Is that correct on the first quarter?
We are, yes, we are 2.10% ahead of last year, which I'm very excited about because, as you know, last year we had an increase over 2019. So that means we're doing things right and we're moving in the right direction, and our hotel partners are doing a good job.
Commissioner Finney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions.
Okay.
One, I know that tourism is now under the Department of Commerce, and I believe that was something that you were excited about happening.
Very much.
Moving. Help us all understand a little bit about how that works and how it affects the local tourism visitor bureaus, or do you have total flexibility, or help us understand that relationship with the Department of Commerce.
Well, I mean, for us at a local level, it doesn't make much difference one way or the other. I was very excited about it. First of all, Department of Commerce, because tourism is a business. I think a lot of times people, when they think of tourism, they think of Disneyland. And that's not necessarily the case. Every community has tourism. It doesn't look like Disney World. It doesn't even look like the water park. Sometimes it's a wedding, sometimes it's a funeral. All of those folks are gonna come and they're gonna stay. They're gonna do additional things. They're not just gonna come in, go to a wedding. They're gonna eat. They're going to go to our events. They're going to utilize our zoo. So for people to understand not only the direct impact, but the induced impact of tourism is important. And moving over to the Department of Commerce gave us credibility and validity, in my opinion, because I think whereas LANA is economic development on the long term, and I've always said this, and economic development is investment in the buildings and once things are built, that's when we take over. Our job is to get people into those places, not necessarily our local communities, but those people from our surrounding communities, and more than 90 miles away is my preference, simply because they have to stay in a hotel. But I think that it made a huge difference in the credibility factor. And at that point, we also got to implement some programs. Yesterday, the Department of Tourism got to present a $40,000 check to Buffalo Dunes Golf Course for improvements. That would have never happened under the wildlife and parks, because then it was outdoors generated. So I feel like now the recognition that we are a business and back under the development side of the Department of Commerce is important.
Thank you for that. Second is, you're projecting 900,000 in transit guest tax. But I do know that pressure has been put on the collection of that tax from a standpoint that one former hotel has been converted to apartments, another one is in the process of being converted to apartments, another hotel is closed and probably will be torn down. Another hotel is in the process possibly of being sold and maybe converted to apartments. I know that's still a possibility. So what kind of pressure does that put on us as a county and you as the Convention Visitors Bureau as far as collecting that 6% that we're looking at that funds your area?
Obviously, lack of product, it is that whole balance of supply and demand. No supply, demand is higher, the cost goes up. So I think that we'll continue to see a consistency there. I think that you'll see that, that's a very good question. We have not hit 900,000 in the transient tax in quite some time, even when we didn't have some of these facilities already available to us. And so I feel like we will still be able to meet that 900,000. And again, if we don't, it's not a big deal because, like I said, we can only spend what we make. But I feel like supply and demand issue, you will see that your hotel room is going to cost you a little more in Finney County because the demand is still great.
Thank you.
Couple questions. Your 6% rate, how's that compare, because it's been a year since I've been on your committee, your competitors or your cities you compete against?
So across the state, there are very few. Overland Park is at 10%. Dodge City went up to 8%. There's probably 8 or 10 that are at that 8%. The standard across the state is 6%. And there are some smaller communities that are at a lower level, that 4 and 5%. But 6% is the standard across the state.
Also, have you, I see you're getting more sports events. Are you getting a better notice from like the National Junior College and the State High School Association for their state events?
I think we are, and right now, that's the facilities I have to utilize. We would go after different business. Low-hanging fruit is the golf course. Conference business, I don't have a facility. Conferences are usually 400 to 500 people. Have a facility that can facilitate that right now. So we're doing a good job of fulfilling the facilities that I have. As we move forward, I think in the next couple of years, you'll see that change a little bit as we have facilities come on board.
One comment, several years ago, you hosted the state
Travel and tourism concert?
Travelers Convention, and I had to give the welcome. It was interesting. I did a little survey right at the start of the convention. I said, how many of you have been in Garden City before? And I had them hold up their hands, and it was amazing. I could count the number of people on 2 hands that had been here before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the travel business. I thought, whoa.
But we focus on our community.
It is interesting that the statewide, we don't get much respect.
I disagree.
I know, we're working on it.
We have made huge inroads into the respect that we get from the other side of the state. Yesterday's check presentation being one of them. I think you have some longevity, and Sally has been at her job 16 years in Liberal, the CVB director there. I start my 17th year in August here. So there's been some longevity, kind of like you told Lana, keep whining. So we have some longevity and whining and stomping our feet for demanding respect, and it's coming to fruition, so.
It was interesting. We've been to several events with students from higher education that have been here, and they just are always amazed at what's going on out here because they don't know.
I know, and we need to figure out a way to get an all-encompass campaign together for the entire community, for economic development, for the city, for the county, us, so that we can, storm the Bastille.
Anything else? Nope. My question is, last year, it appears to me you show revenue of 850,000 from the bed tax. Did I miss something?
So my revenue from the bed tax was 850,000. The revenue generated by the bed tax was more because there is a deferment to pay the water tax, the water park investment.
All right. So what is the standard delay from the time that the revenue is collected by the county before you get it?
It's a quarterly check, It comes in generally, it's written on the 27th to the 28th. Trista usually gets it within that week. I usually have it a week later. So I get checks 4 times a year.
So do you get then a check into January for fourth quarter?
I do. And then in April, yes.
And the funding request of 900,000 is what you anticipate the revenue to be in 2024?
I anticipate it to be higher than that. But I anticipate that my share of it could hit that number.
All right. Those are my questions. The request is for 900,000, but I think that all of us know, and people outside watching today should understand that the request is to receive all of the bed tax received by resolution of the commission for 6%.
Minus the deferment dollars.
And with that in mind, do you have any closing remarks on your request?
I do not. Again, we are very honored to get to represent our community. I believe my staff is very involved. Always tell everybody we have 4 people in that office that do the work of 8. So kudos to my staff and to my board and to you commissioners for supporting us.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion with regard to this request?
I'll make that motion.
And your motion is?
Take it under advisement.
Thank you. Second. Been moved and seconded to take the CVB funding request under advisement. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I
Thank you.
know in the past, Roxanne, you helped us a lot when we granted statewide. It's always,
We absolutely love being able to highlight our community, and we get to do the fun stuff. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's really nice to be able to have people understand how important we are out here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Do you want me to stay up here?
No?
I had a miscommunication with Lisa. It was on my part, so she will not be here until shortly after 10:30. So if you would like to, either we could take a break or Roxanne could do her Fair Board piece. That was on me, and she said she would she had a meeting that went until 10:15, and she would be here just as quickly as she could.
To me, it makes sense to go right into the fair. If that's all right with the commission. Got a different hat on.
Ta-da!
Please introduce yourself, Roxanne, on behalf of the Finney County Fair Board.
I am the Finney County Fair Board Vice Chair, and this year the Finney County Fair is asking for the same dollars as they have in the past. However, I would like you to take into consideration moving into 2025 the funding of a director. I would like, that event is huge and should be much larger than it is. And so moving into 2025, just in the back of your mind, what that might look like for you guys to help fund a director. And I'm only asking that you look at it for 2 years until that director has time to get their feet underneath of them and create their own salary. Also, I wanted to let you know this year, growth has kind of been the theme of the Fair Board. It has been, when I first came back onto the Fair Board, it was 5 members. I believe we're up to 13 now, of a 21 potential seats that can be hosted on the Fair Board. And believe you me, with what the Fair Board is supposed to accomplish, those 21 seats are definitely needed. The fair is basically an event of events. They host stock shows, basically, tractor pulls. This year we are adding a Casey Donahue concert to kick off the week of the fair, July 15th. And I'm very excited about that. There's a lot of stuff. If you've been watching social media, you know that this Fair Board has been much more active than they have in the past, and they're working very hard to make this fair as large and as community-based as they possibly can. They will be doing a community carnival. Carnivals right now are very hard to get a contract with if you don't already have one, simply because in 2020 they went bankrupt. And the ones that survived have their picking ability to pick whoever they want. And our fair doesn't quite make the cut as far as attraction of people yet. And so therefore, right at the moment, we don't have a carnival group. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask the community to join us and host some carnival games and do some wonderful stuff. I believe we have some RC car racing and stuff that's coming in. So I also sent a letter email to Jenny Newberry to see if you gentlemen would be willing to host a couple hours of one of the carnival booths. So I'll be awaiting that response. And she just got it yesterday. And then, like I said, we're doing the Casey Donahue concert. I know a lot of people in the community are excited. He is a red dirt country western singer, as he's came out of Liberal, grew up in Liberal, but has made the top 10 charts. And I think that will be a very well-attended event. Saturday the 22nd, we're going to have 2 concerts that evening, in addition to a community feed, a watermelon feed, watermelon contest. There's all kinds of things going on for the community Saturday the 22nd. So I'm very excited about the progress that has been made over the last couple of years. It's been a very different group, so you guys would be very proud.
I need to echo that. This is a very, very energetic group and setting lofty goals, but I think they're going to hit every one of them. It's very, very fun to watch.
Yes, they're doing a fantastic job.
Other remarks, Commissioner?
Nope.
Okay.
Question, how many young folks participated in the fair last year?
Oh, heavens. Are you talking just 4-H and FFA, or are you talking overall in the community?
Around what?
Are you talking just 4-H and FFA, or are you talking overall in the community?
And all of the ongoings at the fair, as I recall, were about 1,200 kids.
There are 144 families in 4-H and FFA, and roughly, like you said, 1,200 kids. That fluctuates depending on who's turning 18 and who's coming in, so.
Well, my point is that if you're talking about investment, $53,000 requested for the fair to serve the community and 1,200 kids that are not on parole or in jail, but rather down at the fair, that's a pretty good investment. That's about a little bit over $40 per kid.
That's right.
So, good work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fishney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is not budget related, but relationship related between the Fair Board and the Extension District. And I know Dwayne comes into the Fair Board. I am liaison to the Extension Board. And there's discussions about having MOUs with the Fair Boards in both Scott County and Finney County.
Correct.
Has that been presented to the Fair Board yet, or?
It has been
Discussion is that received?
Has been presented to my knowledge. Has it been signed? I don't think so, and my apologies with the events that have been going on. I had not made the last couple of meetings, so I can't answer that question in its fullness, whether or not.
No, I think it's still in draft stage according to the meeting this week, but from the Extension District standpoint, but I didn't know whether the Fair Board had been made aware of that.
Have been made aware.
It's all in the spirit of spelling out responsibilities with regard to 4-H and fair and so forth and so on. So to me, it's all a positive thing.
I think it's a very good thing to know where your expectations lie. There are some gray lines there that have to be crossed simply because a lot of times judges, for example, the judges for 4-H FFA, we utilize for open class because we don't have much for open class. So there are some gray lines there that need to be clearly defined and are always going to be there to some degree, so.
No, I was an encourager of them when they first brought it up to pursue that. So, yeah, I appreciate hearing that perspective. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones?
Only thing I know is I know a couple judges for the mutton busting that you used to hold that are experts on that the Jones.
That and judging outhouses.
Yeah, I missed out on that one.
We haven't judged outhouses in a
things are
while.
fun.
That was fun. Yes.
Anything else, sir?
See what you've missed out on, Mr. Chairman?
Telling you, the fun girls, that's what we do.
Roxanne, I'm by no means the financial guru, and as you know, these four gentlemen have gone through this multiple years. I'm a rookie. But it appears that you show on your application sponsorships of $20,000 this year.
So projected, I don't know that that's what we've received as of yet, but we have a sponsorship committee that's working very hard and diligently. Again, my apologies, I've missed the last couple of meetings, so I can't account to the financials as they sit right at the moment.
Commissioner Dries, you sit on the fair board.
Yes, and sponsorships are coming in, but 20,000 is probably on the top end. I don't expect them to exceed that. But they're relying very heavily on the sponsorship, especially because of the concert. That's
That's a
Very pricey.
fairly large investment.
very much.
And I will tell you that the Fair Board is in a growth pattern. What had happened in the past is we got down to 5 members, and so probably the fair got to a point where it was basically a stock show. And so we're moving in the direction of changing that. I think that so sometimes sponsors are a little hesitant when they don't know exactly what you're doing. Even though we've put in front of them, here's where we at, where we are, and this is where we want to be, and I need your help to do that. So I think that's an education process of them seeing us succeed. Every year since we've grown the Fair Board, the sponsorships have grown as well. So that's just going to be a work in progress over the next few years.
My next question is, you show income from the carnival of 13,000 and expenses from carnival/entertainment of 25,000. So are we losing money having a carnival?
Sometimes. It just depends on the year. Sometimes it gets rained out. A couple of years we've had the carnival get rained out. Sometimes it has been 110 and you're on a hot pavement, and so it just depends on attendance.
Okay. The prior year, 2022 actual shows 0 income from carnival and $30,000 of expenses for carnival and entertainment. I don't understand.
So carnival and entertainment, $30,000 covers the bands, hotel rooms, that kind of stuff. Any entertainment, walking entertainment that we have out there. We have a strolling act. We have a balloon guy that comes in every year. That also falls under that, not just the carnival. So entertainment would include anything that is above and beyond. So the bands that we've hired in the past, like I said, the walking entertainment, that would be about where that money goes.
Okay, so in 2022, did I miss something? We did not have a carnival?
We did not have a carnival.
And we expect to have one this year? Or
We are going to have a community carnival. We are not going to have carnival rides per se. Because again, like I said, the contract, getting a carnival to come here, we just don't attract those numbers yet that the state fair would attract, or I think we lost out to a state fair in Oklahoma for the group that we usually.
Well, I agree with Mr. Jones that $40 a child for involvement in FFA and 4-H is a limited price for the taxpayers for children to be doing something other than on their iPhone. So with that, your request is $53,000 for the Fair Board. I'd give you an opportunity to make any closing remark you would like.
Like I said, it is an honor to get to do this, and I think that The Fair Board needs to be commended. There are a multitude of, there's about 3 or 4 people that have been on that board 20 plus years. They need to be commended because it's not an easy job, and they take a week of their life and give it to the community. The majority of those people on the Fair Board take vacation time to serve the public. So when you're out there at the fair, please remember to thank those Fair Board members, because each and every one of them has a full-time job and they're taking vacation time to spend their day out there. So I know it's hot, don't yell at them. Be nice and make recommendations and say thank you. Because like I said, they're giving of their free time and they're giving a lot of it. So it's very, very important to thank them.
Commissioner Jones, do you have a motion?
Be happy to offer a motion to take the Fair Board's budget request under advisement.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to take the Fair Board's budget request for 2024 under advisement. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, give her a chance to get here. She may
He's
be
in the hallway.
overruled.
Apologize, guys. When the welder says he's really close, I need to get a hold of him. He's hard to find.
Guy has his welder on his truck.
Yeah. When you break really big pieces of equipment, it takes a really good guy to put it back together. Horsepower. Horsepower, does it every time.
Well, it's because we get 30 minutes instead of 15, right? It still makes a difference.
Very well, thank you again, Roxanne. Next up on our agenda is, and our last hearing this morning is moved around a little bit, but Lisa Southern is here from Compass Behavioral Health. Lisa, please step forward, introduce yourself, and introduce the gentleman you brought with you.
Okay, so Fernando is also here. He is the director for the Garden City program starting, I believe, January 2nd. Yes. So Fernando worked for the Garden City office and then did probably 4 years as the director down in Ulysses, and then came back to be our Garden City director this year. So really excited about that.
Our taxpayers listening in need to know Fernando's last name.
Oh, true. Fernando Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, so you do have everything that I sent in advance, correct? Okay, thank you. So I am going to just briefly run through the annual report like I always do. We're really excited that 988 rolled out this year. So just as a recap, the way that works is if someone calls 988 hotline, 85 to 90% of calls are usually managed over the phone. But if someone needs to be seen due to what's going on with them and suicide risk, then they funnel it to the call centers that are in Kansas, which are in Kansas City and Wichita. And then depending on where the person lives, it comes to us if it's in our 13 counties, and then we make arrangements to see the person. If there was concern for imminent danger, 911 would be called by the call center, and then we would be called in afterwards. So we have not received any calls yet from the 988 hotline. By history, we have received some calls from the suicide text line that is out there. So we're very responsive to that. The majority of our crises are given to us by either the emergency room or law enforcement. We have done a lot of training with our staff on trauma-informed care. At least 80% of people who seek services in a mental health center have experienced some form of trauma. So we saw the need to increase the expertise with our therapists, and that's one of the big changes that we've made in the last year. Also, the move of our children's crisis house to the old Russell Child Development Center, which is about a block behind our building on Spruce Street. We're really excited about that growth. It added the ability for us to take a total of 9 children. Sometimes over the weekends, we do have 9 children there. Not all of them are necessarily in crisis, but they have a family situation that requires us giving a break so that we don't end up with a crisis situation. We just learned yesterday, Vicki Brose, who is the Dodge City Director, and I are going to present at the State Association Conference later this fall on our crisis house and the other crisis services that we provide to children, because it is being recognized across the state. So we're really excited about that. There's lots of stories in here that it would be great if you took the opportunity to review. I want to point out this specific page. We were advised this month, well, it's toward the ends of April, that we will receive provisional certification to be a certified community behavioral health clinic in July of this year. And so that will provide an additional means of funding for us, and it also provides additional requirements of us. We will still be a community mental health center, but we'll also have this additional certification. So we have been very proactive in adding some of these services in advance so that we don't throw at our staff a whole new service array on July 1st. So care coordination has been added. This allows us to engage more with people outside of when they come in for services. So if someone misses an appointment, we are on top of reaching out to them and trying to get them rescheduled. After a crisis, the therapist always touches base with the person within about 24 hours if they're not hospitalized. Then on the next business day, the care coordinator reaches out and makes sure they're still doing okay. We also send them a card in the mail. And then if they don't show up post-crisis for their services, again, it's our ability to reach out to them. I don't think that so far people have been saying, leave me alone, you're calling too many times. But we are trying to watch out for that. Our goal is to keep people safe. We have had some instances where we've actually gone to try and find the person when they didn't show up afterwards, just to make sure they're okay, or to actually bring them in for their appointment because they don't have a ride. So that's the really great thing about CCBHC. It provides us funding to have positions that don't have to generate revenue. Our entire existence has been built on fee-for-service. You got to provide services in order to generate revenue, in order to meet your expectations of your budget. So built into our new rate are these positions that then don't require billing. And it's just a better way to take care of people. A lot of the services on this circle we've already provided. Another thing we're really excited about with this is veteran services. And again, we've already increased that. I gave legislative testimony, I think in the fall, where we were helping this veteran who had been, after some persistence on his part, granted 10% disability. Not much. He was drinking, using drugs, then he'd get clean, then he'd be depressed, then he'd go back to using drugs and alcohol again. And so we got connected to him because, again, our outreach efforts have intensified, and started working with him. We got him on medication for his depression and anxiety. We got him clean again from drugs and alcohol, and 90% disability from the VA. He was getting no help from anyone. And we all know the VA's inundated, so it's very hard. And that's why the CCBHC certification is growing, is because we know the VA alone cannot take care of people. So there need to be other avenues to help them. So again, we've already added and increased some of these things, but I'm sure we'll have even better stories to tell next time. Fernando, do you want to say anything else about I know.
Fernando
give it all
Rodriguez,
away.
thank you for
I
being
give it
here
all
today. I'm gonna start the questions before you start your presentation.
Okay, well, she.
Okay.
No, I need to talk to you, sir.
Okay, well, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back to Garden City.
Yes.
Glad to have you here. The commission is well aware that I'm the assigned board member to Compass, and I'm familiar with what you guys are doing. What do you think will be the impact to our community, Finney County, of the CBHCC designation? And how are you going to staff those people?
I mean, I think it's going to have a huge impact because, like Lisa explained, I mean, reaching out to our clients, you know, patients, individuals, I mean, community members, and not just concentrating on the fee for services in this, you know, we're going to, I mean, already our team is growing and the ability to provide services and have that, you know, throughout the week or weekend, whenever they need those services is going to be huge. It's going to, I mean, decrease, you know, some of these crises, improve the mental health of the community. I think it's going to be great. I mean, mental health and physical health, you know, go hand in hand. That's another piece that we're going to be addressing, helping them, you know, through not just take care of the mental health, sorry, but also, you know, I mean, checking out with their doctor's appointments if they don't have a medical or a doctor, you know, hey, let's get you know, primary care physician. I mean, helping them understand, you know, the importance of medication compliance, things like that. So, I mean, I think it's going to be great, you know. I mean, so, I mean, yeah, we're looking forward towards that.
Thank you. Lisa, I got questions for you.
I know where this is going to go, but yes, okay.
Well, I believe you have, business-wise, not business-wise, but commissary of mental health, 13 counties, right?
Yes.
And on your application, you listed from the other counties in 2022 of 386,000. Can you get a breakdown of the other counties to Jenny so she could get it to us? And perhaps next year's application would have that breakdown from the other counties so that we could use it for comparison purposes and general knowledge for us.
So, I should have made enough copies, but I brought it just in case. Grant County asked for the same earlier this week. So, yes, I do have the breakdown of the other counties.
I'm glad that we're not novel.
No, there's about 13 novelties when I go to meetings, so I expect this.
You know, just think of it this way, you only have 13 other meetings. I'm so glad that you're here. When the sheriff's department arrests someone who's exhibiting unusual behaviors, perhaps mental health behaviors, who do they call?
They call Compass.
When the county attorney needs expert advice on handling competency and also advice on prosecution of cases, who do they call?
Compass.
So the way that I see it is that Compass dovetails with our essential law enforcement function in the county. And at the same time, now that you have the CHBCC designation, it's going to be more than just clinical services.
Yes, and can I add a few things to your line of questioning?
You bet.
Okay,
Fill in the
so,
blanks.
okay, well, right now, we do the competency evaluations. I do believe it's written in statute that in order for someone to go to Larned for competency, you have to first go through the CMHC and have them decline.
You use acronyms that these folks.
Oh,
don't know what they are.
okay. That you have to go through the Community Mental Health Center first, and they decline before you can send them directly to Larned. I did not know until recently that Larned is the only state hospital that does competency evaluations and restoration. I thought Osawatomie did it as well, but they do not. So you can see the burden with our designated state hospital. So on top of that, if we deem someone incompetent, then they have to wait to get a bed at Larned for competency restoration. We have also the Lakin Sheriff on our board. Their person who's been in the jail awaiting competency restoration went about 2 weeks ago. 501 days he sat in jail. That's longer than his sentence would have been for his crime. But because they went through that process and he was deemed incompetent, they couldn't do a plea bargain or anything else until. So very soon, community mental health centers will be doing competency restoration services. We requested like a year ago to get trained and be a part of a pilot project, but they went with Topeka, which is understandable. I mean, their volume of crimes and people waiting on evaluations was much higher. But we did make a case that you should try this out in a rural area. But anyway, that should come very soon. And then hopefully that will help decrease county costs of having people in jail for a prolonged period of time. Also, we did get approved for our crisis services grant. We'll talk about this at our board meeting next week. But what we budgeted for was for our two larger communities, Finney and Ford, a crisis case manager full-time, Monday through Friday. And so our goal moving this forward, just with one, and then with CCBHC, we should be able to budget for it in future years, is the possibility that if law enforcement goes out, and I'm gonna pick a scenario, domestic violence situation, a spouse is arrested, a spouse and children are left at home, and obviously they're very upset over what has happened, the ability for Compass to be called to come in and just make contact with them, whether they're our client or not, talk with them about what might be a normal reaction to a trauma, talk to them about the services that would be available to them in the community, as well as services that Compass can provide. I know there's been talk before of like a ride-along program or a co-responder program, but if you really look into it, the good models that have been researched in Kansas are in the larger communities. So you got Kansas City and Wichita. And they don't actually ride along 24 hours. They pick peak times. So maybe they'll have someone who goes and responds with them from 10 to 8 every day. So again, what we're proposing as a start is very similar. We're just starting a little bit slower. It's not actually a ride along. It's going to be a come in when we need you. But I do think that will help relieve some of the burden. Also, we did collect some information when we had a community meeting about this, because I know that law enforcement and the jail feels like everyone that they respond to has a mental health issue, or a large percentage has a mental health issue. But I'm not really sure the data supports that. So I think law enforcement and Compass have been trying to collect some data. So with the number of crises that Finney County had in 2023, there were 759 that we responded to. Business hours was 460, after hours was 299. The total that involved law enforcement was 10%. I did bring a copy, I can give you guys of this. There's also this belief that we're always driving back and forth to Larned. You know, and I get that. It probably feels that way. 25 people out of that 759 total went to Larded. So that's 3% of all of our crises, 7% of our adults. And the amount that we diverted from any hospitalization was 670, or 88% of all those people. And again, that's the infrastructure that we've built and have been adding to every year to try and have alternatives for people here in the least restrictive environment. Hayes did reopen their adolescent psychiatric unit, so that's great. It's closer for parents. St. Catherine has closed their behavioral health unit. We've been dealing with off and on over the last couple of years. It's open sometimes, it's closed sometimes. We are going to meet with St. Catherine and a team of other community partners in June to talk about what might be other options that we could all work together to provide to help take care of people. And one of the things we are looking at is an adult crisis house to mirror what we're doing with our children's crisis house, but looking at adding that one in Ford County. Jerry has really pointed out to us the low unemployment rate here, and finding staff to work 24/7 shifts is not at all easy. So that's why we're looking at maybe another community. Plus, when we have kids or adults at a crisis house, we provide services every day. So they have therapy Saturday and Sunday. If they're there on Christmas Day, they have therapy on Christmas Day. So we have to watch how much we put on our Garden City therapists versus the other offices and share the love throughout. I'm sure they love it when I say that. Oh, there's those numbers anyway. So this is, this would be both Garden City Police and Finney County Response, the sheriff department.
Thank you.
We do not have them broken down. And then, okay, where I thought Jerry was gonna go was the number of positions we hope to add. We have 30 open positions. We're rapid fire hiring. However, we keep running into, we lose one as we gain one, so it doesn't always work. In the 18 months, we expect to be at 91 new employees, so close to a 300 employer agency. So that's the 30 open in addition to 61 new positions throughout our entire agency. The bulk of which probably will be in Garden City because that is our largest budget program and it's where we have the most amount of services out of all of our 13 counties. And so we will be raising salaries with the CCBHC model. Fernando had an employee who left and said, I'm leaving to make significantly more money. Those were his words. I looked at the paper today. That's what his pay would be July 1st if he stayed with us. But our new pay rate and how it applies to our existing employees is still being worked up. So we haven't been able to make any formal announcements. So the fact that he used the words significantly better, knowing that's what we're moving to, it just shows us that our hiring capability is going to be better.
All right, those were my questions. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Southern or Mr. Rodriguez?
I have a question for Lisa. Can you back up about 4 or 5?
Is it this one?
One that says Compass 2022, there we go.
Yes, Compass by the numbers. Okay.
I find the demographic here interesting, in that I understand that Finney County is about 61% Hispanic.
Yep.
And yet, this is a stellar record for the Hispanic community. Can you kind of explain that?
Yes, and I believe I've addressed this a couple of times. When someone comes into our building to start services, they get a demographic sheet to complete. And this is the way they self-identify.
Yeah.
Yes. We could all say visually.
That explains.
That's not what our waiting room, it's not what our service array looks like. But yes, it is self-identifying. And I think part of that is if you're maybe a third generation, like you've just been in the United States and don't necessarily identify with a different ethnic background, or you have parents of a different race, how you choose to self-identify is what we report. And I'm really surprised all 13 counties don't.
The reason I found that interesting, I reflect back a few years to a fellow by the name of Rick Dalkey, who stood where you're standing and said that 25% of the folks in Finney County need mental health services.
Yes.
And I've not forgotten that, and so you would think that would be reflected in all the demographics. So, anyway, thanks for your.
No, that's a very good point. If I could add.
No questions.
Mr. Jones?
Okay.
Wait,
you're doing.
I just have a final remark, and then we'll take some action on your
Okay.
funding request. 5,235 cases. Our funding last year was 150,000. Commissioner Jones, that's $28.65 per person, just to note. It's quite a huge investment when it appears to me that 97% of the people avoid treatment elsewhere, including
Yeah.
learning. So with that, Lisa, your request is 150,000. Any final remarks?
Well, okay, I just want to say one more thing about CCBHC with these non-funded positions. And this will never be reflected in these numbers, but one of the things that we're going to do is hire a community educator. And we really want to engage businesses in bringing that community educator into their workforce and doing presentations or giving some sort of mental health consultation or, again, education, so that if people won't ever come in, what can we do to just provide community support for them? Let them get to know us, see that we're great. They would love to come in if they ever have a need. And we also very well promote the other providers in our community. Most of them have worked for us before, so we know they're excellent. And we just really want people to get help, whether it's with us or someone else. But if they go to a private provider, Saturday at 3 a.m., it's going to be me they get, not their private provider. So that's why it's important that we're known in the community and available to people. So we'll be excited to report back if any businesses take us up on this as we get those positions rolling.
Including the county?
Yes.
With that, is there any motions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move we take the budget request under advisement from Compass Behavior.
No second?
Been moved and seconded to take the budget request of Compass under advisement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes our docket this morning for the outside agency hearings. We are scheduled to move into a work session, I believe, and we'll do that in the Carol Brown room. I need a motion to adjourn out of regular session.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn from regular session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are done for the day. We'll meet immediately in the Carol Brown room for our work session.